Welcome into another edition of the FutureSox Podcast. My name is Elijah Evans, and I've got another interview coming at you today. Super excited to be diving into a bunch of interviews with White Sox prospects over the next few months throughout the offseason. Today, welcoming in Sean Burke. I talked to Sean before, I had him on the show, and I'm super excited to talk to him about his first taste of the big leagues in September, which was super exciting to get to see him up in Chicago. Last time we talked was in Charlotte in August, and then since then, Sean got up to Chicago, made his first 4 major league appearances, and now is entering his first offseason with some big league experience under his belt. So, Sean, how you doing, man? Welcome in.
Thank you. I'm doing good.
Yeah, good to hear it. Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us a little bit. So let's start here. I saw you pitch in Charlotte in late August when I was out there watching some games and covering stuff out there. You had a stretch of some really strong starts in Charlotte. You made some adjustments. You were looking like you told me you were at kind of a really good place compared to the beginning of the season. You had a late start to the year, right? It took you some time to get back in the groove. What were some of the key things that you feel like you kind of got under your belt in that last stretch of time in Charlotte that allowed you to get up to Chicago and then succeed there?
Yeah, I think just getting really comfortable with my game plan, like knowing kind of broadly like how I want to attack lefties and righties, and then just getting more comfortable with repeating that over and over again. Like I think in the beginning of the year, especially coming back from an arm injury, I kind of had a similar issue when I came back from Tommy John that the stuff came back and the stuff was good, but it took a little bit to kind of hone in on the command, the consistency of the stuff. So I think like that first half in Charlotte, it was some ups and downs, and there were flashes of good, and then there were also some outings that I didn't thought I threw my best in. So I think more than anything, it was just getting comfortable and then kind of dialing in my routine, and the repetition of it just made me more. I guess the biggest word is like comfortable on the mound. So
Yeah, 100%. And then getting to, Chicago, right? Like what was obviously as someone you went through Tommy John, you went through shoulder injury, right? Like you've had a lot of ups and downs the past few years. You said it to me in the past, like 2023 was almost sort of a wash for you just because you were never at your full health point. What was the emotion like for you, getting the chance in September to make your dream come true and reach the big leagues?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, this whole entire past off season going into 2024, like that was obviously the goal of mine was to get to the big leagues, and I knew that just getting myself healthy and then being able to showcase my stuff again would give me a good shot. So I think to just kind of have all that work pay off for me at the end is super gratifying.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you got up to Chicago, you had a relief appearance, and then you had 3 starts. What were kind of some of the initial things you noticed in those first few games of like, man, this is a little different facing, some big league hitters, some guys who are all stars, some, just the jump in talent or just, in the energy of pitching in the big leagues?
Yeah, I think the energy is a lot different. Just being in a big league stadium, pitching in front of bigger crowds, games with some higher stakes, like playing against San Diego and Detroit, like those games were meaning something to them. Um, and then I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was the power of guys. Like I think guys were just hitting the ball, like even their missed hits were hit harder. Like there's just a lot more guys in lineups 1 through 9 that can do damage. And then obviously you get some smaller differences in like how aggressive certain guys are. What they're taking, what they're swinging at. I think that a lot of guys are able to put the bat on balls, even if they're good pitches that you feel like you execute. Like guys foul off with stuff a little bit more. Like they're peskier hitters, um, and then I think the power was the biggest difference. Just seeing, 1 through 9 in the lineup that there's a lot of guys that can do damage.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of your pitch mix, right? So you threw for people that are listening that didn't watch as carefully as I did. You threw 40% fastball. You were around 28, almost 30 with the slider, and then 25 curveball with a few changeups mixed in. When you were at the big league level, how do you feel that you had to kind of change the way you approached hitters at the big league level in comparison to what you had done throughout your minor league career?
Yeah, I think just less. There were a little bit less fastballs. I still tried to pitch off my fastball, but um, like it's harder to get away with stuff multiple times in a row. I feel like at the big league level. So in a game in the minors where you might get a guy towards the end of the lineup that you're just beating with one pitch, and you kind of go through 2 or 3 at bats with him, and you see he's really not adjusting to that pitch, and you can kind of keep attacking with that pitch. I think guys at the big league level for the most part have been making adjustments quicker. So it's like, if you beat a guy with a pitch once or twice, you're most likely not going to be able to beat him a third time with the pitch. So just, kind of learning, and this is still something I'm learning and going to have to continue to learn going forward, was just like, when you can kind of go to the well with a pitch versus when to get off it or set it up to come back. So little stuff like that, I think is still a learning curve for me, but that's something that I think is a big separator from guys that I'm trying to get better at going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things you talked about with me earlier this season was how your slider had become a pitch you were, really comfortable using as a strike pitch, not just
Hmm.
necessarily an out pitch, right? Like your
Yeah.
curveball tends to be a heavy strikeout pitch, but the slider had become a pitch that you utilized to get strikes early in counts too. How
Mhm.
do you feel that that kind of was able to work for you at the big league level? And do you think it's
Yeah.
something that you want to continue to be able to kind of mix in sliders in all these different types of counts?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I continued kind of doing that throughout the year. I was able to throw
Yeah.
a lot of, early in the count sliders to get ahead of guys. And it kind of, as the year went on, I was able to morph it a little bit. Like I would throw kind of like a bigger cutter slider, and then I'd throw
Right.
one with a little bit more depth. So just depending on the count and the hitter and what the situation was, like I'd try to manipulate it a little bit. And um, I think just as like I said, the consistency of it and just getting more feel for the pitch and throwing more in games and just getting a good feel where target setups with the catchers. That's actually another adjustment I made was
Yeah.
talking to the catchers and changing my setups a little bit on certain pitches just to help me kind of hone in on certain spots in the zone that I wanted to be at more consistently.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. It's an adjustment. I feel like you pitched with a lot of different catchers this year. Through whether it was
Yeah,
in Charlotte, there was different guys coming through there, and then at the big leagues, obviously there was some different guys rotating in and out of catching. So finding that comfort with each one obviously is important.
yeah, yeah. And I think just going up to like obviously I'd thrown to Chucky in AAA, but Corey was
Yeah,
awesome. At the big league level, like throwing to Q was good too because I hadn't thrown to
nice.
him ever before, and
Right.
knowing that he's going to kind of be one of the guys that will be with us in the future, like it was good to get on the same page with him before. Um, Hopefully, this next year we do it at the big league level.
Yeah, what was it like catching with throwing to him especially? Because I know I've talked to a lot of pitchers, right? And he's a young dude, right? Like 21, and
Yeah.
getting to AAA just in his first 21-year-old season, right? Like I think they've heard very good things about the way he's trending defensively.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. I mean, obviously he rakes. I think the defense is good too, and he's one of those guys that is going to continue to work at any even like small details that he's not excelling at. So just to like see him be aware of that and constantly wanting to work and be better at things, whether it's offensively, defensively, pitch calling. Like he's eager to learn a lot of stuff, which is
Yeah.
very encouraging.
That's awesome. In terms of your fastball, right? So one thing I want to ask you a little bit about because you were at like 18.6 inches of IVB induced vertical break on that on the fastball when you were at the big league level, and obviously that's a pitch for you that you like to throw high in the zone. So the IVB helps a lot, being able to get that ride kind of
Yeah.
towards the top of the zone. Is that something you've worked on developing, or is it something you've kind of always naturally had with your fastball?
I've kind of honestly always had that
Yeah.
throughout my life. Like coming out of college, I had that. It's probably gone down a little bit as I've gone from college to minors to big leagues, just because the balls, like you can
Right.
throw crazy vert balls in college
Yeah.
with the college balls and like the lower levels of the minor league balls. So, um, but that's always something that I've been able to do. I think last year it might have been a touch lower than that, but that could have been
Yeah.
inconsistencies with delivery, how my arm was getting through the ball. So that was something this year I tried to do early in my throwing program, like when I was still building back before I was even on the mound, just making sure the ball flight was consistent. And, I can feel it out of my hand now too, like the good ones versus the bad ones. So, um, but yeah, that's something I've kind of always been able to do.
Definitely. And then your changeup is the one thing. Another thing I want to ask you about from just the pitching specific side, right? Like you threw 6% of it, so not a pitch you use a ton. But I know you talked to me in Charlotte about how that is a pitch that when it's on for you can really kind of add another layer to the
Yeah.
way you pitch when you have it in addition to those two breaking balls. And you had some really nice whiffs on it at the big league level in the few times you did throw it. Is that something that you want to keep emphasizing? Do you think it's a pitch you'll try to work in more?
Yeah, 100%. I think um, towards the end of the year or end of the time I was in Charlotte, I was throwing it a decent amount. I don't think
Yeah.
it's ever going to be a pitch I throw an
Right.
overwhelmingly large amount of the time, but I'd like going forward to still be able to throw it like 10, 15% of the time.
Yeah.
And I think too is the catchers get more comfortable calling my stuff and going through games with me. Like we'll find better spots to fit it in. Like I think with Chucky, I'd thrown to him before, and he had seen me throw it before. And the game I threw against Detroit with Chucky catching, I threw it a couple more times. And I told Corey too, because Corey had never caught me before. I'd never thrown to Corey before I
Yeah.
went up there, and um, I have a habit of not throwing good changeups in my pregame bullpen. Then I'll get into the game, and they'll be better. So. I kind of talked about him with that, like, hey, even if it's not great in warmups, like don't be afraid to go to it. But then there's also some situations where like I know I have two good breaking balls, so
Right.
sometimes it's like the risk reward. Like if I'm going to get beat, I'd rather get beat on one of my better pitches.
Right.
So just kind of trying to continue to improve the consistency of it. I felt really good with it at the end of the year. I
Nice.
think especially the San Diego start, I felt really good with just like the command of it and the movement of it. So that's gonna be something I just more looking at video, going through game film, just kind of picking out spots to throw it in and going over that with the coaches just to find my spots I can go with it.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think that feel thing in more, if it's the pregame stuff, do you think that's just more of
Yeah.
just like literally feeling it? Because I know a lot of guys I talk to in the pitching side, right? Like a changeup is a pitch you just have to feel out, and
Yeah.
it takes a while to get the grip for it
Yeah.
as you're kind of progressing through a day.
Yeah. I think too, like for me, I think it's definitely the feel, but for me, I've always been a guy that like, I can't throw 100% of my normal velocity unless it's in a game.
Yeah.
Like I'll try to throw as hard as I can in the bullpen, in a pregame bullpen, whatever it is, and it will never be my top
Yeah.
velocity like it is in the game. So I think it leads that not being at an actual 100% throwing the pitch could
Right.
also play into it too. Like obviously the your breaking stuff and everything. Like when you're throwing that 100%, it looks a little bit different than
Yeah.
when you're throwing it in a bullpen or something like that. So I think just trying in my head, at least with the changeup, even pregame or in bullpens, to do my best to try to throw it almost like harder than I'm throwing my other pitches, or with
Yeah.
more intensity than I'm throwing my other pitches, just to make sure I'm getting more of a game like feel with it.
No, that makes sense for sure. Obviously, a limited amount of time there, but how was it working with Ethan Cass and the rest of the pitching staff in Chicago once you got there?
Awesome. I mean, I feel like me and Katz worked really well together. I thought he was super helpful throughout the game and in leading up to the games with preparation and simplifying a lot of stuff for me because I know the first day I got there, he was like, "Do you want a lot of information? Do you want no information?" I was like, "I kind of want somewhere in the middle." So he did a pretty good job taking the information that was necessary and simplifying it
Right.
for me. So I was just able
Nice.
to kind of go out there and pitch and not have a ton of thoughts.
Yeah.
And then with the staff, I thought everybody was super helpful, super like on top of their stuff. I think we're all pretty close friends. I mean, the pitching staff. So
Yeah.
um, just bouncing stuff off each other. Everybody was super encouraging.
That's great. Obviously, you've been with the organization, so you kind of know these guys, but you haven't necessarily been on the same team as some of them.
Yeah.
Was there any of the pitchers, whether it was the starters or the bullpen guys, that you really got some cool little tidbits from in your few weeks there?
I mean, I tried to talk to Garrett as much as I could. I'm
Yeah.
friendly with him and knew him before being up there, but everybody knows how good he is and how talented
Yeah.
he is. So something I noticed a lot with him in the first couple starts he made that I was trying to actually work towards was how he moved around his fastball because he's another guy that throws a lot of
Yeah.
fastballs, the heavy fastball percentage. But even when he's throwing his four seam, he's got the new sinker now too. But when he was throwing his four seam,
Right.
I was just noticing how he was able to move it around the zone a lot. So that he's throwing a fastball, but he's throwing a fastball to 3-4 different locations that are playing like 3-4 different pitches, and that opens other stuff up for him. So talking to him about some stuff like that, I thought was super helpful too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That seems like a common answer for sure with a lot of guys. I know Cannon was telling me the same thing. He was just always trying to pick
Yeah.
Crochet's brain about just the way he pitches and kind of because it's obviously, being around a season like the one he just had, it's useful
Yeah.
to get any takeaways you can, of
Uh,
course.
yeah, and he's a younger guy too. Like he's not
Right.
he's a year older than me, but he's just had so much experience that um, he's got a lot to offer from that side of the
Yeah.
ball.
Yeah, 100%. What are some of the things as kind of look towards your future and going into next year, going into spring training, some of the big things you're trying to, whether it's just adjust or just continue to get better at? I know you hinted at some of them already.
Yeah, I think for me, like the biggest thing is consistency. Like I feel really good with all my stuff right now. There are a few like small adjustments, delivery wise or like pitch wise that I want to work on. Nothing crazy overhauling. Like I'm gonna play around with either a cutter or a two seam fastball this winter just to try to
Right.
add like another fastball look. Um, but other than that, nothing really like crazy different. At least for now. That could change in a month if I talk to you again. I could be working on
Yeah.
something completely new. But just trying to right now to get my body back under me, gain some more weight that I lost over the course of the season, and then just get the feel back for everything. And then once I get off the mat, I'll start playing around with some new stuff with the pitches I have, and then like I said, maybe trying to play around with a couple different fastball grips, see what I can do with that.
Nice. Nice. That's exciting stuff for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's always, I mean, obviously guys play with stuff all year in the off
Yeah.
season. You might as well, right? When you have the time
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. I don't have to worry about go pitching later that week.
Yeah, exactly. What's your timeline looking like for in terms of getting back to fully throwing and then getting back to Arizona eventually?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start kind of getting back into throwing over the next couple weeks. Hopefully, getting off the mound and sometime in like mid late December, and then have January to kind of be a little bit more built up, working on some stuff, so that I'll probably head out to Arizona a little bit earlier than the report date, just to kind of get acclimated out there. The pitching coach I work with, John Drew, he's at University of Arizona, so I'll probably head out there, throw with him a little bit, do a little tune up before spring.
Nice, awesome. In terms of the roster and the energy, right? I think it's like there's no for me personally, like I don't think it's worth harping on the past season, right? It was obviously a tough year in Chicago, right? But
Yeah,
like, how is the energy among the young guys? Because what I experienced when I was in Charlotte and then also in Canny when I was out there, even at the single A level, right, is
sure.
there's a lot of cohesion with the core of the young roster and the minor league guys. How do you feel that kind of you have grown and all the guys that are in your kind of similar age range have grown together in the past year or two?
Good. I mean, like I said, I think we're all friends first and foremost. Like, I think we have a good group of people. Like, you take baseball out of it, like I would be friends with a lot of these guys that we're playing with, which I think
Yeah.
helps. Um, and then I think that we're not blind to the fact that we see what's going on at the big league level. Like, we understand that there's a lot of room for improvement, and I think guys are just excited that um, they could potentially have opportunities to be that improvement that they need. So I think everybody just has a positive outlook going forward, because it's like, we know guys are going to get their shots, and people are just eager to kind of help contribute to the team.
Yeah, exactly. I love that outlook. I think that's the best way you can think
Yeah.
about it, right? Because you might as well, if you're in a stage early in your career, right, and all the other guys are
Yeah.
earlier in their careers, right? It's a chance for you to be part of the next wave and the next
Yeah.
stage of the organization, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you see teams do this all the time. Like, you know, the Padres are really good right now. The Padres used to be bad. The Red Sox have had years where
Yep.
they're down, and then they come back and win it the next year. Like, teams kind of go through these ebbs and flows all the time. So, um, like I said, just kind of getting the right group of guys to kind of continue to play ball consistently. I think we could be in a good spot going forward.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. I like the way you're looking at it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you taking the time to just shed some light on your season and where you're at. And I think we're excited to see where things take you next year with the White Sox for sure.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to get going again.
Awesome. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you.